I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought at night, just for another role.
Hello and welcome. This is Season 30, Episode 3 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, where we combine friendship, tabletop RPGs, and unbridled enthusiasm to bring you a roundtable discussion on topics sent in from gamers around the world. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Stork.
I'm Jason.
In today's episode, we talk about the RPG news that WotC/Hasbro has bought D&D Beyond. Weasel Creature writes in and asks about digital tools. That's a fun thing to say. Digital tools. I'm halfway through this cider too. Oh my goodness.
I might resemble that.
Yeah. And what we're going to keep that we've learned from COVID at the in-person table. So digital tools when we play in person, and what we're going to continue on with that.
I'm more of an analog tool.
Yes, you are definitely that tool. And Sean, near DC, asks about PC gear and player agency. If you'd like to be part of our show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. And our past podcasts and streams are all available at our website at happyjacks.org, as well as links to our cool Discord community and social media and a bunch of stuff like that. All right.
I'm so going to start an online database for players looking for GMs and call up the player agency.
Oh, that's a really good...
I'm not going to do that. Somebody wants to run with it with my blessing.
Please
Yeah,
do. For GMs as well, right?
Yeah.
Like players need a GM,
Right.
the GM needs players. But
it'd be just a big pool. It's called the player agency, and then a GM it's like Backstage or something. They go through and they find people who you have a little resume. They go through and
everyone knows what Backstage is.
This person's interests. Well, we were just talking theater nerd stuff. You go through to your person's interests. Oh, they like sci-fi. They like Game of Thrones. And then okay, cool. Ding, they're going to be. I'm going to invite them to my group, and we'll see the player agency. I'm just making it up right now.
Is it just a dating app?
It would be.
It would be.
Yes, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a dating app where you look for multiple partners, which is fine if everyone knows what you're into.
Absolutely.
As long as everyone's on the same page.
People show up thinking it's something else.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, this is a key party, you said, right?
Right.
No, we have to find the key.
Yes.
To this.
One of the 7 keys of Entuzler. 7?
Oh my goodness.
What kind of party is this?
But wait, you said that there were safety words involved.
Safety tools.
Oh, is that different? Okay. Yeah, sorry. Announcements. New studio. Still in progress. Looking better, slowly but surely.
It's also sounding much deader.
Yeah.
And in sound terms, that's a good thing. Dead.
Yeah. So hopefully nobody's complained about echo yet. So fingers crossed that we've solved that problem, or at least made it better, that they're not going to complain about it. But there's a whole bunch of foam on the ceiling now that was purchased by our fantastic Patreons and the people who donated to our new studio registry. So thank you.
Doing the Muppet look.
Yeah. Once I get it cleaned up, I'm going to take nice pictures and send it to everybody who helped out and bought us stuff. But right now there's a whole bunch of stuff that's really gross right off camera. It's just like piles of stuff.
Don't lift up the sheet.
Yeah. It's like, don't lift
All
up the
studios are that way, though.
I know.
mean, it's part of the charm of a studio.
Yeah, well, maybe when there's not like little walking paths, like a hoarder or something. But yeah, we're actually maybe going to. They say we solved the echo. Exciting. But we may try streaming an actual play soon. So if you get a random notification that we're streaming and it doesn't say test, please ignore. It might be that we are trying out the studio for an actual play that we aren't telling anybody about because we don't want to advertise it and have it be terrible. Shh.
What?
Nothing?
I didn't say. I have a frog in my throat. I told you.
Yeah.
The frog said tomorrow night. I don't know why.
I don't. No idea. FYI, we were recording this on Friday, April 15th. And call to action. We need emails, please. So a lot of you have been writing in. I appreciate it. You're all nice and are like, hey, Kimmy's in charge now. That's wonderful. We like it. God save the queen, whatever.
Yeah. You can keep sending those. She likes them.
Yeah, I like them.
But have a question in there as well.
Yeah, but Also, please send in emails that have topics for us to talk about. Weasel Creature, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but like half my email box is you, so I can't have just like the Weasel Creature like episode. I guess we could.
That's the new podcast. It's Happy Jacks reads Weasel Creature's
Weasel Creatures
emails.
all the time.
It was the weasels.
I mean, we used to do that with Jib. Like it would be like a Jib episode because his emails were like 4 pages long. So it'd be like, and here's the one email we're doing for the next 2 hours. But all right.
Yeah, if you don't send us emails, I'm likely to go rogue and just start talking about stuff, and nobody wants that.
Or I'll sing.
Ooh,
Nobody wants that. I don't want to do it. You don't want me to do it.
this is not a threat.
Don't make me do it.
It's really more of a just we'll be desperate. and have to
Something
do
will, something will happen.
Something will happen. Yes. All right. And so yeah, please send emails. Now, our first item that we're talking about. So, big news a couple days ago, released this week, I think like 2 days ago actually. So, a lot of people didn't realize that like WotC didn't actually own D&D Beyond.
Right?
Including me.
Right?
Until this week.
I mean, I haven't really paid that much attention to D&D for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm a little when the news came up. That was my first reaction to it, was like, huh? They don't already own that?
Yeah, I was like, is this April Fool's? Like,
Yeah.
What? What?
Yeah. Well, so this week, WotC Hasbro actually bought D&D Beyond for $146 million.
Maybe that's why they didn't own it, because
so much money.
that's
Well,
a
they've
lot.
been like licensing it,
Yeah.
and fandom. They own like the big wiki site that all the big wikis are on.
Oh,
Wikipedia
right. Yeah,
is on
fandom,
there,
yeah.
and all of those. So they're not hurting for
Right.
caching content as it is. But like they've been running it, and they've had an arrangement with Hasbro / WotC. But it seems like Wizards of the Coast in the last year, I guess, D&D Beyond has like doubled its the last 2 years, I guess, has doubled the number of users. I think it's something like 10 million people are using.
I bet they want to capture the marketplace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like 10 million users. Now they have them now in-house. And I guess they're bringing in some of the people who are currently doing it for fandom. So it's all in the up and up. So they have made it clear that if you've purchased something already, you get to keep it. Which was, I know, everyone's first freak out.
Yeah.
Because for so long it's been a pain. Like if you bought a book in person that was from WotC and regular D&D, if you wanted to have it on D&D Beyond, you also had to purchase it there. You had to purchase the digital copy.
You buy it twice.
Yeah, you pay full price.
I seem to remember WotC was not real good at keeping their promises. Didn't they also have like an online gaming or like an online player monster generator stuff, and then they pulled support for it, so it was just unsupported. You could use it up to a point. They just,
I don't know.
and it seems like that's one of like 3 or 4 things that they just kind of abandoned or didn't put enough effort into.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see how people might be concerned that now that WotC's in charge, what's going to happen to our slick running D&D Beyond?
Yeah, now I'm the last person to defend D&D on like really any level, but I do recall some of what you're talking about, and I think that was pre D&D Beyond.
It was.
As a product.
It was.
And D&D Beyond has brought in a lot of stuff like the encounter generator or builder, the monster like you can modify monsters and customize a lot of stuff, and like I simply would not play D&D if we weren't using D&D, or if I wasn't allowed to use D&D Beyond.
Right.
I just won't. I would consider playing it if the group is using D&D Beyond and we're all happy doing that. And that maybe that's why they want to buy it, is they know like, oh wow, this is becoming an essential tool. And built into that is a bunch of those collapsed promises that we watched go by the wayside.
That's very well put, and I think that I just don't have a lot of trust about WotC's.
Don't blame you.
Judgment calls, and yes, maybe some of it's corporate. They restructure and reassign people to the point where you get people in charge now that really don't know what's going on because they've reassigned and shuffled, and even though they look good on paper, they just don't know, and things fall apart after that. So I have concerns.
There was a big conversation in our Discord about this, about it. Like, okay, well, it's been great. We've all put a bunch of money into it, and now it might be terrible. And like what happens when Wizards of the Coast does their next edition, which will eventually happen. Like 5th edition is going strong right now, so it probably won't happen for a while. But since they will want to push people into whatever the next product is, then this no longer supports 5th edition.
Very Windows.
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions and nervousness about that specifically. But the one thing that everyone's hoping it does do is, like, if you buy a book now, hopefully there'll be like a code in it that you'll just be able to plug into
if
D&D
they own
Beyond.
it, then
Yeah,
they
so you
can
get both for one price now.
maybe.
They can't deny the effectiveness of D&D Beyond. WotC can't. They can't ignore it, and they've been licensing it, and clearly they've been watching it.
Well, and they just spent $150 million to say they did acknowledge it.
So I'm sure that there's enough people there that are like, don't break this, okay? It's working fine. Let's not break this. However, sometimes the best laid plans, you know?
Yeah, I think the real unknown for me in that equation is Hasbro, right? Not that Wizards of the Coast are the paladins that they want us to believe,
No.
but they have been forced to do some things because Hasbro made them do it. And so to some extent, there's that sort of corporate overlord to contend with. But I don't know. I hope this is an opportunity for them to make things more accessible and more available in different formats and screen readers and, a lot of stuff that people need to access that content.
Yeah. The other thing I'm curious about is there's a lot of like third-party content on D&D Beyond right now. And what's going to happen with that?
Yeah.
Like, they've said, like, if you've bought something, you get to keep it. Like, does that apply to third-party content that you've bought on there? Or are they going to wipe everything that's not proprietary?
After the whole Pathfinder debacle, like where they got stung with their open license, I don't know if they even really support third-party stuff anymore. To be fair, I don't play D&D. I haven't played D&D since 4th edition, so I'm really not up on it.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
terrible. Here I am on a podcast.
Well, I know
my
you
ignorance
can.
of D&D.
Sorry, I keep talking over you.
It's all right.
I know you can release stuff through like Drive-Thru RPG. They take part of it, and there's like the licensing thing you can do through there. But I don't know how that works with D&D Beyond. I would assume that it would be similar, and because it has been like hand in hand with the actual Wizards of the Coast for a while, and they've been kind of like it's been a partnership. So hopefully all
They
that
may
stuff
work out a
gets to stay.
licensing agreement with third-party stuff, which is as long as they pay X amount of money, then they can have their stuff there. And once the payment stops, then they get pulled.
Yeah. Kind of like putting your stuff up in like Apple Play. They're going to get their cut. You can host it here. They can boot you out whenever they want. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Well, like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, MMO, they pay a licensing fee to, it was Lucasfilm and now it's Disney, and it's going along and nobody seems to be bothering them, and they keep putting out new content, and so Disney leaves them alone, which is surprising considering how controlling Disney can be with their IPOs. But
They have the most control.
they might even say, this is working just fine. You guys have done a really great job for going on 15 years now. We're not going to mess with it.
I just would love a sequel to that game.
Right.
I personally liked that game a lot, and I
Right.
would love to see it move into the 21st century.
There's been much talk about Knights of the Old Republic. I'm actually talking about the MMO, which is Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, the MMO as well.
Yeah, okay.
I never played the other game, but the MMO was a lot of fun.
Looked great.
Oh,
So
yeah.
much-
Time
It's still
into it.
playable too.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
not in bad shape. It just
No.
needs a graphic overhaul and a systems update. Like they need to rework their mechanics a
Storylines
little.
were so great.
They were fantastic.
But they did, all the characters kind of have like 10 movements that they all do, just
Yeah.
when they're talking. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of gesturing, many of the same gestures and many of the same different scenes.
Yeah. Oh, but the amount of voice acting that went
yeah.
into it was
I know.
unbelievable. No MMO has done that before or since.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
The storylines, each and every one of them is unique and interesting.
Yep.
And it's like you want to play all of them because it takes you on a different journey. It's so great.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress.
That's okay.
Welcome to our SWOTOR podcast.
It's a talk show.
Yeah.
My God, so many hours in that during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I spent so much money on cool outfits,
On
like
Knights of the
real
Old
life
Republic?
money.
I didn't know I thought you said you couldn't play it because you were on Apple. I remember talking to you about it years ago when I was playing.
Oh,
it.
yeah,
You were
yeah.
like,
On Apple, I couldn't play it, but during the pandemic, I have a
What
PC.
did you end up playing? What did you make?
God, I don't remember. It's been a while now. But yeah, especially
You made
like,
a Jedi Sentinel.
that's right. It was a
Focused on
Sentinel.
DPS.
Yes.
That's what I did. I
Dual wielding.
made a little Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah,
ripoff.
Togruta, yeah.
Yeah.
But she was like pastel. She kind of looked like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
I made it before they had the Togruta model, so I ended up with a little greeny girl.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I made that, and they're hard to deal because they can't take any damage at all. They're just like the Ranger of the Star Wars universe because they would just get clobbered. But I like
But yeah, I'm super interested to see what happens. Coming back to the actual thing we're talking about, what happens next? Hopefully, it stays a great product. Because again, it's the only reason I'm playing D&D right now. Is because I can hit a thing and it like I can look it up. I don't have to sit and like PDF search or flip through a book or anything.
Right.
I'm like, what does this power do? Click. Oh, a little bubble pops up and tells me exactly what it does.
Yep.
Amazing.
I used to have all the rules to D&D memorized back in the day when I was young and my brain still worked, and it was only first edition, but advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's weird that it's gotten so big and unwieldy that you literally need something like this to keep track of it, to make it work.
You know who has like all of it memorized is Nick.
Okay.
Nick knows so much about D&D.
Although he also is just a genius.
Yes.
So that's a thing that he doesn't get credit. Like people don't realize this about him. He is incredibly smart
Absolutely.
and just absorbs information and has it at his beck and call. Like he's a wizard.
Yeah.
That's my best explanation.
He's also still pretty young, right?
I think
Brain hasn't been
no, he's
pickled by alcohol
my age.
and head injuries. Okay.
I'm younger than him. That's what is important. But yeah, we're playing D&D right now, and every once in a while, like it's like I'm looking for something, and then he like just pops up with it in Zoom. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Our DM is like, or DM is like, how does this work, Nick? And
Stu
he'll
can
just
do
like,
that with GURPS, and the Mook
Yeah.
is able to do it too. The Mook is able to even almost
good.
tell you page numbers, but
Oh,
he
nice.
studied and wrote books on GURPS, so he knew it inside and out. But it's great when you run into a GM like that, so you don't actually need the big unwieldy computer database to make it work.
I was gonna try and reach out. I forgot. I was gonna try and reach out to Mook's family to see if they had any plans for the Mook.net, because there's so much incredible GURPS content there, and like people like who've never heard our show, I run into them on Discord and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, I use this website called the Mook.net for all my GURPS stuff. It's like so well known, and I'm just like worried
He's
that
a
like
great friend of the show.
yeah, oh yeah,
Right.
I'm just worried that
Loved the game. Did you ever play in the group?
I never got to meet him.
He was one of the most
Yeah.
enthusiastic GMs. He
Yeah.
loved
I always wanted to.
loved
and
his players.
we just our paths never crossed, and then
Yeah.
COVID, and yeah, it was a bummer.
all right.
I was once asked by Stu, like, what makes a good GM? And I had to think about it as like the top thing, and I was like, it's being a fan of your players.
Yeah, absolutely.
It helps a lot, and he was a huge fan of the players. It's like with every stupid thing we said, he'd be like, "On me, yeah, that sounds great. What a hell of a hit!" And he'd be rolling his dice and telling you the rules. It was just when she gets excited, you get excited, and it's this feedback loop. It was
Yeah.
great.
You can tell when a GM's trying to kill you. And you know, there's
They
a
sit back
version
there
of that
mode.
where like I've gone into Halloween games, right? We're gonna do Halloween one shot, like, and I am going to try to murder you. Like, okay, this is fun. You know, like we're all on the same page with that. But like in a campaign, like we want to tell a fun story. You know, like let's.
The adversarial GM.
Yeah, that's not fun.
All right. Want to read the first email?
Sure. Which
Which one of you? You both said sure
We did.
perfectly at
We
the
did a little
exact
rock
same
stick.
time.
You do it. You do
It
it.
was
Okay.
like synchronized.
Salante
sure.
to Kimmy and the Brew Crew. No. Kimmy and the Remy Crew? Definitely no.
Definitely not.
Not.
I don't
Hi,
think you
Kimmy.
really thought the Remy thing through, but my dirty brain, like, yeah, no.
Yeah,
Definitely not.
that's why.
Definitely no.
Hi, Kimmy and guests. Congratulations on your nonviolent coup of the Jacker Network.
You assume.
I've been admiring your machinations
Have you
of...
seen Stu since I took over?
Right? Coincidence?
Mm-hmm. How do you know it's not violent?
You know, I think you can't say Kimmy without Machiavelli, right?
No.
It's got, there's no M in there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there
It's in there, yeah.
starts with
Yeah.
M.
Yeah. Congratulations. I just made it up.
I don't think there's a K in Machiavelli.
What's the cut?
CH.
Don't correct me.
That's where Mach speed came from.
Or Mach could do about nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Or the Mach 5.
Yeah,
Right, because
exactly.
it was machinations and it's a mechanical thing.
Exactly.
I'm reaching now. Okay, congratulations on your non-violent coup of the Jacker Network. I've been admiring your machinations over the years, from coming in as a guest host, gaining Stu's trust, hitting the APs, and finally convincing Stu he's too old and needs to step down. Genius! Now that, theoretically, the pandemic is getting to a point where more in-person gaming will be happening, I'm wondering if anyone is planning on utilizing or increasing utilization of electronics during in-person games. My wife has dabbed in using Roll20 in games before the pandemic for maps and graphics and such, and I see that still being used in person. I've run the Aliens RPG, including Adventure, a couple of times on Roll20. It's so freaking fun to run and see everybody's mouths drop open in surprise at various backstabbings. Not only can I not imagine using scraps of paper for all the secret notes, but I'm also wondering if it would still be better to only do virtually. So many private notes back and forth. But I'm eager to try it in person. I know things like texting, Slack, and Discord have increased presence at the table. I'm just wondering if folks have thought or discovered new ways to incorporate some of the pandemic practices. Keep rolling them crits, Weasel Creature. P.S. Look twice for motorcyclists.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, absolutely. As someone who had some close calls when I was riding my motorcycle, yes, please always
That's
look
right.
twice.
I forgot you were a motorcycle rider
Yep.
for a hot minute.
Totally. Remember Chad? Like, yeah.
Yes. Trying not to.
He got me into motorcycles.
Yeah.
That's before Jason's
I
time.
don't know Chad.
No, his name wasn't Chad. They all started calling him
Oh,
Chad.
okay. Because he was a Chad.
Yeah, he was I invited him as my boyfriend to come hang out with my friends and play D&D. He immediately whipped out his laptop and started raiding in WoW while we were at the table playing D&D. Yeah, he was not a keeper, but he taught me about motorcycles, so that was pretty cool.
All right.
Yeah, I know. We try not to think about it.
It gave us a lot of podcast content, I'm just gonna say.
Wow.
He was a good rebound. It was fun.
All right.
You had a cool motorcycle too. I remember. There
He
was like
did.
some pink
He had a
going on.
Triumph.
All right.
It was very nice.
So to Weasel Creature's point,
Yes.
what if any pandemic gaming habits do you think you'll bring to your actual table?
I do like electronic note taking, the note stuff back and forth. I think, I don't know. I don't know if there's really much, because really the only difference for me was just doing it all virtual.
Mhm.
And to be honest, most of the gaming I do now is with cameras and virtual anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, there's just more people in the room now, but it's still the same muscles that I'm using. So I'm not sure if I ever really am in this position to answer this.
D&D Beyond for sure. Like whenever I play D&D, even if I'm at the table, I will have a laptop or a tablet and have D&D Beyond, as long as they don't fuck it up.
But I'm not
out.
sure that you can play D&D without it anyway.
Well, you can.
You can.
Like
But
you have Nick
why?
with you, and you can just regurgitate the rules.
I mean, you could say, okay, we're playing with the 3 core books, and go with that, and print out some paper character sheets. Like, you can still roll with that. Like,
Yeah.
it's just playable.
But as a GM, you got to be really good at coming up with encounters on the fly and
Yeah,
doing all
that
of those
is.
shortcuts.
It is
and stuff.
tricky. I mean, you have to prep as a D&D GM.
You have to.
DM.
Yeah.
It's wild.
What?
You
Yeah.
have to like plan ahead.
know.
You can't improv everything.
I really struggle with online tools even after a year and a half, 2 years of playing online games. I'm kind of with Stork on this. Like I haven't picked up anything that I wasn't already doing.
Yeah.
Like maybe I've been messaging a little bit, but I never really liked table secrets anyway, and so I have not used to passing a lot of notes back and forth. And anytime I've tried, I would love to play a game with somebody who just rocks and rolls with Roll20 or whatever, like any of those systems. I've never played a game on one of those systems and had everything go smoothly and everyone's having a great time. Like something falls apart, something doesn't work, something is clunkier than just like, I go around the rock. Okay, stop trying to move it. Don't worry.
Stop it. Let's keep moving.
Yeah, like,
don't worry about it. It's a marching order. You don't need to spend 20 minutes putting everybody in the same order. It's fine.
Yeah. But that's just like my opinion, man. It's,
New shit has come to light.
yeah.
Maybe we flip this on his head, because to me,
I've learned more now about gaming online than I ever did because of the pandemic, and it seems like there's more tools available. Things are running smoother. By flipping it on its head, I see that as more of a future for gaming. We always used to complain when we first started that it was a big time sink to drive across town, to sit down with people, to game. There was a lot of scheduling involved, and now the only barrier to playing is putting on clothes and turning your computer on.
I mean, the
It's-
first one's sort of optional.
Half.
As long as you have a sweatshirt on, you're like, good.
As long as you don't. Anyway, there was a really traumatic email that we read a million years ago about somebody Donald ducking, and it was awful. The way it ended was awful, and so I don't even like to joke
man.
about it.
Oh,
Like-
wow.
It was
okay.
awful. I don't even like to joke about it. It scarred me. But
Well-
my point is that the whole online gaming thing works so much better now, and to a point now where, like, I actually don't mind being able to sit down and game for 4 hours on a Friday night or something and I don't have to worry about driving across town. I'm exhausted or whatever because it's just upstairs in my office or whatever it is.
And it's not 30 minutes each way to someone's house. And
I think in many ways the pandemic has increased our ability to game rather than decreased it. I think it's a good thing. People are so used to it now. It's actually expanding the hobby. And look at the purchases of D&D Beyond in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
If that is a marker of how many people are now gaming, and most of it, let's assume online, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think I love digital tools, especially the last few years have forced me to move a lot of my teaching online, which has really expanded my understanding of what's possible for free, especially through like Google Suites. I probably, if I ever do a game that requires maps again, I don't think I'll ever have table maps because it's really easy to drop stuff in like Jamboard or something, and then everybody just has their own. Like you have your little circles on there, and everybody just has their own device and can move their things around. Everybody's seeing it, and I can buy these beautiful map sets or support people on Patreon who you get free maps every month or whatever, and you just drop them in digitally, and everyone can access it through a link. I just shoot out a link on whatever chat program we're using, if it's Discord or Slack or whatever it is, and everyone can just sit there and see the same thing, like synchronized at that same moment, like see each other move their little minis. They don't have to like reach across the table. If you have to stop in the middle of it, just log out. You don't have to worry about, we have to use this table for dinner now, so let's move everything.
Roll everything up.
Take a picture, remember where everybody was.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. So I love that. I've also loved incorporating stuff like that with my students because it's free. It's through Google Suites. It's amazing and really easy to do. And I really do need to write up something about how to do it. But another thing I really have loved is I don't really like table secrets either, but I love the drama that like miscommunications give. And there's been a couple times in games I've done online where like one character spoke the language we needed and other characters didn't. And it's not necessarily a secret, but the GM would message the person who spoke the language. So we all knew that they were talking to that person.
Yeah.
But the GM like sends the message to them through Discord is the example I was playing an online game.
Sure.
And it was really fun how it affected the play style, what the player read there and then told the rest of us, and how that changed what we did versus if the GM had just said it out loud, like, okay, this is in, Gnomish, but here you go.
Yeah.
I don't remember what language it was supposed
Pretend
to
you didn't hear.
be. Yeah. So I don't like table secrets either. I generally just like say secrets out loud and everybody don't metagame because you're not assholes.
Yeah.
But stuff like that, like it adds an element because even if you're trying really hard not to metagame, like it's almost impossible.
No,
No,
but
it's an information dump.
Yeah.
Sometimes you forget which information you're supposed to know and not supposed to know.
So I really love that use of technology, and I think I will continue to do stuff like that at the table, especially when like languages and there might be like miscommunication that could cause fun drama.
But
so exciting.
Really elegant board games even make use of imperfect information,
Yes.
right? Like, or even like Texas Hold'em poker makes use of imperfect information, and it does. It adds tension. It adds stakes. It raises questions of like, well, okay, what'd they say? What did you say to them?
Yeah.
Like that is like really draws you in character.
Is that the one where you put the card on your forehead?
Yeah.
And everybody.
That's the one.
That's
Yeah,
it. So
got it in one.
everybody's looking at the card. Yeah.
But
Love
it,
that. Great example.
Just I don't mind having the like suspension, like that tension of we know something just happened, you know, versus the like slipping a note to the GM like I'm gonna go through everyone's backpack while they sleep. Like, okay,
But see, okay. See, I like being able to send secret notes like that. It sucks that you have a character that wants to go through your backpacks at night, but I do like the fact that I don't know because now I'm burdened with the information that this dude's a douche, and I'm trying to play along with him. And if I don't know, if I'm going to find out later, it helps. Also, sometimes there's things like in your backstory that you don't want everybody to know, but you want to ask the GM, like, can I use my relative who's works in the thieves guild here, can I contact them secretly, and sometimes you just don't want it, you're not ready to let the rest of the players know that you have a thief in your or whatever it
sure,
is.
yeah.
So I don't necessarily mind digital secrets, and I don't necessarily mind note passing. I actually prefer it in many ways because again I get dumped with all this information, and now I have to be very careful about what I know versus what I think I know versus I don't like what your character is doing and it's pissing me off, but if I didn't know, then I'd still like you. It takes a lot more manpower to parse through all of the secrets and non-secrets.
I'm reminded of another online quirk that has occurred to me that I didn't realize I had learned being in the studio and like recording a game. But I have learned up to not table talk while someone else is talking, right? Not that it's like, some games it's okay to have that table talk of we're all doing a bit of the meta game because it's like, we're planning or whatever, right? That's fine. But you don't, like, I remember being at lots and lots of games where like I'm talking to whoever's turn it is and there's another conversation happening at the end of the table and they're like, and they're like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, fucker, like, excuse me.
That is true.
I found that really frustrating, whether I was the GM or I was sitting next to or even I did get pulled into a conversation and I'm like, oh crap, now I'm the guy. Yeah. Like I'm as guilty of it. But the discipline I learned from playing here in a studio that's being recorded and you can't record multiple voices. We don't have multi-track, and so the casual games that I've joined in the last couple years, everyone has figured out like, oh yeah, we can't have side conversations, or if they happen, they're happening in a text chat, which doesn't interrupt anyone else, and it's relatively easy to type something and still listen, or at least I find that somewhat, what's the word I want? Like that, those things can mesh together in my mind.
Congruous.
Yeah.
Multitask.
Yeah. Versus like if I am talking or listening, I definitely can't listen to someone else to two people at the same time. So that is one thing that I definitely have taken away from this is I'm glad that more people are having a gaming experience where only one person is speaking and we're all taking the moment to be active listeners.
That's a really interesting point. My brother has pointed out that my whole family, and really a lot of my friends, when we're in conversation, we get excited. We all talk at the same time, and we all talk on top of each other. And it's indicative of this modern age, but it's really part of my family. Like to a man, all of us will talk on top of each other. And you are right. It allows us now, being on this podcast and such, allows us now to actually stop and listen and wait for someone to finish their thought before then you jump in, which is really just being a polite listener or being a polite person.
Yeah.
But we all have forgotten it in our modern rush. Did something?
No, nothing's wrong.
Nothing's wrong here.
Yep.
Keep moving on.
It's off camera. It doesn't matter.
Your eyes got
one
wide
of
for a
my
second.
very nice wire things just fell a little bit, but it's
So,
fine, you don't see it.
I am reinforcing your point in that I think it's made us better people because we now stop and listen and let somebody finish their, unless you get really drunk and really excited and then you start talking on top of each other. And even now, like
Just say my name, Stork.
No,
Just say it's
I'm the
me.
worst, and I see it when I do it. It flies out of my mouth, and I interrupt people, and I cut off their thought because I had a thought. And it's hard to hold on to a thought sometimes, especially if you're waiting and waiting, the conversation starts to drift away from where your thought was relevant.
Yeah.
But it has made us more polite people, I think.
And sometimes it's okay to let that thought go. And I do have to agree with you, Stork. I am a better person now.
Yeah, my whole family's that same way. Like, we're all theater people. We're talking on top of each other. Like, it's been it was a huge adjustment for my husband, whose family is very much not that way. And it was a huge adjustment for me
Right?
to go back, and his family is very much like quiet. You go and you talk to somebody looking at them. My family's like, you talk on top of each other, you have conversations like across the house at each other. Like, I still have to catch myself to like not try and talk to him when he's in the other room.
He's a very good listener.
He's
Oftentimes when I have a conversation with him, he is present and focuses, and he makes all them. He's great,
Yeah.
and you're right.
It makes me feel so much worse about how terrible I am.
But you're right about. But all of our friends do this. If
Yeah.
you go to a backyard party with Stu and everything, we're all of us interrupting each other, trying to be witty and clever, or we just want to finish a thought, or we're very excited.
Or we break in a song.
Well, there's that too. But really, it's just about basic conversation. We kind of all talk too quickly and want to finish up the conversation and move on. We don't take the time to sit back and listen. But being in a podcast like this, or be the digital world, we've all had to like take a deep breath, let somebody finish, and we can all move on. It's an interesting observation.
I sometimes joke, but it's very true. Like, starting to stream our games solved all my problems with gaming, because
Really?
people can't talk over each other, and people show up because they want to be on camera.
Yeah, and they show up on time.
Yeah. What?
Mostly. I mean, better than
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like they're closer to the schedule. They're less likely to drop out of games, and they're better about not talking over each other.
Yeah. And at least if somebody is not paying attention, maybe they're looking at their phone, maybe, and there's lots of reasons for that. I'm not the guy who's like, oh, take people's phones away at the table. Like, well, come on, let grown-ups be grown-ups. And like, if somebody needs to look at their phone, or they need that dopamine boost, or like whatever,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Besides, it's D&D. We're in combat. It's your turn. It's going to be another hour and a half
Right.
before it gets back to me.
Exactly. So it's not necessarily that's the problem, but when we're in studio or now with online games, if somebody's getting distracted, usually only they are distracted. They're not taking anyone down with them. And again, I don't mean that as harsh as it sounds, but like,
Brilliant.
but that's fine. People get distracted. We all do. They're like, oh, I'm going to Google this thing on Amazon real quick. Like, fine, whatever. I've definitely looked stuff up while I've been gaming online at my computer, and it was because I was like, oh, when were firearms invented? And whatever. But I'm not bothering anyone else when that happens, and that feels like an improvement to me. So that's something that I know if I go back to a in-person table that was just a casual home game, I know I would be sitting there like hoping nobody talks over each other, because I'm not going to know how to respond to that.
One more thing that I think I'm going to keep, that actually not all the time, but we've played a game, and this is 100% because of COVID. We were playing a game outside, and then we were playing a game around a fire pit, because it was like, this is the furniture we have outside, is the furniture around the fire pit,
And
instead
it's
of like setting up
safer being outside.
and being outside. That's why we did it, because it was safer, and my daughter's still too young to be vaccinated and all those things. Actually, she's in the trials. It's very exciting. But but to protect her, we've been like really careful about letting people in the house, things like that. So people came over and we gamed around my fire pit. We tried with real dice a couple times. That ended terribly.
At least twice, Joey's whole dice bag into the cracks around the thing, like.
And like, I have like these big pavers, which are like 4x2, and in between them are little gaps with little rocks.
Very artful gaps.
It's beautiful,
Yeah.
except it is like death if you drop dice.
Because it will winnow its way all the way to the bottom.
Yeah,
of
they
that
just, and
stack
we
of
ended up
dice.
like in the dark, like with our phone flashlights, like trying to find all of Joey's very like curated, beautiful collection of dice.
They're awesome.
They're beautiful, and they just like,
And they were running for their goddamn lives.
yeah, my patio just like swallowed them whole.
Yeah.
So I actually really liked the freedom. We all ended up downloading dice apps, and they're so just easy now. You shake your phone and and you can set which a mix of what dice you want.
Yeah.
And I loved the freedom that gave us to just chill out. And like we made s'mores one time and like all these things, and we didn't have to worry about dropping dice.
Yeah.
And I loved that piece, the freedom. We didn't have to be at a table. We didn't have to have dice trays. I love my dice collection also. Like it's better than Joey's. But
Did it get
shots
shady in
fired.
here?
Yeah, I'm cold.
We'll see if Joey like listens to this, because we'll
We'll
find
know.
out soon. Yeah.
Phone will blow up. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. But so I liked the kind of freedom that gave us in a weird way. Like we could literally go play anywhere, not have to worry about actually rolling dice, as much fun as that is.
Yeah. And another part of that was because we had devices at the ready, even when we had paper character sheets, we didn't need great lighting.
Right.
Right? Like, I had a picture of my character sheet. I could zoom in, which is also great. I'm dyslexic and I have poor eyesight. Like, I have pretty good night vision. The end.
Yeah.
So, being able to have, not worrying about the lights or the lamps or somebody looking at me because I have my phone out, of like, no, I'm looking at my character sheet. Shut up. Like,
Yeah.
It's, Kimmy's the worst about judging people for being on their phone.
I was
So, no, never. That never happened. But it's believable, and people are on my side about it.
Yes, that is accurate.
I think one of the artifacts we're all going to carry with us into our tabletop gaming is having a tablet or a laptop or whatever to help with the gaming experience.
Yeah.
The phones are fine, but it is really nice to have like a full-size character sheet or the books and all of that on a digital format, so you can be looking through them yourself. I think that's it streamlines everybody's life, so that you're not carrying around the entire book bag full of books. I still do, because it is nice to hand them out while you're going through a book. You can hand it out to somebody else who doesn't. Anyway, the point is that I think that's all still going to be with us. So maybe that's my answer. There, Weasel Creature. That's what I'm going to keep, is all of the digital files and stuff that I will now take with me to games. I resisted, I think, for the longest time. We were all a bunch of curmudgeons, like, no, I still need to write it
like
out.
the
No,
book.
I like Office. And I still like a book.
Yeah.
But I do like a digital character sheet, and I do like having it there for like it's always there.
Yeah, and then we got Traveler 5th edition and
Screw
all the books that burned us by their terrible layout and terrible organization, and we're just like, oh, this is now going to keep this table level.
Yeah.
I'm never playing that out of that book.
Yeah.
I have a very good looking bookshelf in my office, and it's full, it's dusty with books that will never get you read.
I mean, this happened to me on every edition of Shadowrun.
Yeah.
And I picked up Shadowrun in '89 when I was 12. Sorry, Stork. But I, 12-year-old learning first edition Shadowrun. Imagine my dedication.
Yes.
Right? Give me a little credit for that, at least.
I picked up the first one of Shadowrun 2 in my 20s or early 30s and such, and it was a bear to figure out.
Yeah.
It made no sense.
I don't think we played most of the rules right. But look,
we tried.
I'll tell you what, when you have a rule in there that's like, hey, look, when you throw a grenade in a room, it's going to bounce a lot. And here's the distance to this wall and this wall. But don't worry, if you throw a grenade in an elevator, that's just called the chunky salsa effect. Don't roll the dice.
Nice.
Do you at least roll to see if it went off? It's like a dud or something?
Oh, we would roll anyway because people had armor and it was whatever. But it was like, it's a lot. It's all of it, all of the damage. But that was every time in the new edition, I was like, second edition was much better, and third edition was much better.
They were able to afford an editor.
Yeah, 5e didn't really improve on 4e, but like that seems to be a theme. So, no, 5th edition Traveler is great. Compared to, I like it better.
5th edition.
Wait, no. What am I saying?
No.
What am I saying?
Shadowrun is what you're talking about.
No, you're talking about Mongoose Traveler.
Yeah,
Which is
Mongoose
in the second
Traveler
edition
is
of Mongoose
fantastic.
Traveler, but 5th edition Traveler was released by
Nightmare.
Oh, okay, that's not what I meant. I meant the one that I played.
Yes.
With
Mongoose
Bill.
Traveler.
Was great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's Mongoose Traveler.
Second edition Mongoose Traveler.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
That one's
Okay.
chef's kiss. 5th edition, we were all super excited about, dumped a bunch of money into, got the books, and could, like, even the spines were like falling apart. It was awful.
And the whole first half of the book, well, not half, but the first 70 pages is full of probability charts.
Yeah.
Like, that's important. Before you even start reading, you got to get that down. Like, okay, clearly I'm
not qualified enough to get to the rest
Well,
of this
I'll
book.
do my own math.
You
Thank
can tell how bitter we are. Like all these years later, we're still bitching about these books.
Right.
Well, it was just sort of that whole bait and switch. It was like the guy that created Traveler, and which we all admired and all that. Dave always has the best story. He came out of his DeLorean from the 1970s and said, "I'll show you kids how to write an RPG." There you go, and took all his money, got back in his DeLorean, and went back to the 1970s.
And we all were left with these books that were like this thick.
Yeah.
They were huge. They were like
Whoa.
2 inches, 3 inches thick. And just like, oh.
And I've been told that there was a bunch of addendums and such, and once you learn to play it, it works great. But it was so off-putting that it's like, why?
Yeah.
You know, which is a cautionary tale, which is take the time to make your book readable and playable, right? We've talked about White Wolf and their vampire books and all of that. It's like the book is full of really pretty things, but you don't intermix it with your rules, for God's sakes. It takes me 20 minutes to figure out, like, you know, oh, it's one little chart in gold lettering on a black background on the side of a page to find the information I needed. What? Just put it somewhere where I can read.
Why didn't you just memorize where it was?
I'm not Nick.
There you go. I never had too much trouble with the vampire books.
No, but I have the exact same feeling about White Wolf books.
Yeah.
Is that it's just buried everywhere. Ugh.
I remember things better if they're like story format. Like if there's like a story and then fluff, and then there's like the table that has to do with the fluff. I actually remember that stuff better then, because it's like in a context, than if it's just like these are the tables and then here's the fluff. Like those things get disconnected for me.
They would have like just fluff and like sheets of like a police profiles, like sort of stacked on each other, and then next to the wound table, right? But it's in black with gold lettering, and so you would just overlook it because it was part of the graphics.
Yeah, it looks like a part of the
And
art.
I like that. But it is hard to find things at that point, which is why PDFs are superior. Searchable PDFs specifically. I still do buy books, but mostly like Kickstarters. If I see something that's just like beautiful, like the One Ring, I backed that Kickstarter, and the book is so beautiful.
Coyote and Crow.
Yeah.
book?
Oh, the art for that is beautiful.
Gorgeous. I'm
that's why
so
I picked
glad.
up. That's why I picked up Numenera.
Yeah. And I just backed Shield Maidens, which is by Mongoose. They're releasing.
I don't know that one.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I'm so excited. It's like Samantha. I'm gonna try and run like an all women like AP of it
Awesome.
if I like it when it gets here. Beautiful art. It's like cyberpunk like Viking shield maidens in the future.
Okay. I like everything you just said.
Yeah, like Freya came down, like Ragnarok happened. So you've got this like tech Viking magic mesh, and like the creative team is mostly women and non-binary people. Like I think the 2 artists are men, but the person who's like supervising the artist is all women. Because that was my first like thing when I was like, oh good, a game all about shield maiden women that's probably written all by men.
And then
Cool.
they're all in chainmail bikinis.
Yeah. But the art looked really cool, so I was like, oh, I feel really good about this. But then I had to search for a while, and thank you for everyone on Twitter who helped me, like, hey, it's in update number 5. So then I was like, I will back immediately. So I'm really excited
I
about
really
that.
like Mongoose's style. When they first came out, they did things like Traveler and RuneQuest, and they would sort of repackage them and redo them and update them. And I really liked the products. They had RuneQuest for a while, and then RuneQuest took it back, so they had to gut it and sort of made their own. But my point is that everything they touched was better for it.
Yeah.
And they were very smart about their IPOs and how they dealt with them and supporting them.
Yeah.
And I have nothing to say but great things about Mongoose and the way they do business.
Yeah,
so I expect great things.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. So I backed that. I have no idea when any of it's coming because I backed it like yesterday. But
I
very
would love
excited.
to interview the Mongoose people someday if we could get a hold of. Like I would love to, because
Super cool.
they brought Traveler back into existence.
Yeah, that's still my favorite way to play. I love Traveler, and their edition of Traveler is my favorite.
I know.
And they still release a bunch of stuff for it, which is great.
That's what I mean. They're still supporting it. So I don't know. It's a really interesting company about how they go about doing their business, and it's probably run out of a flat in Britain, and they just print on demand. But it's astonishing to me the quality that they've been able to maintain for like 10 years now.
Yeah.
So I would love to have an interview or just talk to some of those people and find out, Where do you get your ideas?
Yeah, what's your
Oh,
problem?
don't ask them that, Stork.
Yeah.
God damn it. Steve Jackson famously told Stork, "That's a stupid question." When you asked, "Where do you get your ideas?"
It is a
during an
stupid
interview
question.
one time, is fantastic.
Right.
But yeah, the other
What I
cool
get for
thing.
softballing ideas, I'm like, here's a really general idea for you to talk about how creative and great you are, and it's steady shot me down.
Yeah, in the most curmudgeon way, that's a stupid question.
Oh God.
But the other cool thing about interviewing them is they're from the UK, so they can have cool accents, hopefully. Sorry. I'm very easily amused by that. All right.
If Mongoose, if you're out there, call us. We'll
Yeah.
talk and we'll do an interview.
We have Twitter now. I can just tweet at them.
Hi, we're the Architects RPG Podcast. Would you like to be on our show, please?
Shall I read
Yes, please.
Sean near DC's
Thank you
email?
for your question there, Weasel Creature.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hello to you all, the happiest of Jacks and jackiest of happy folk. Congratulations to Captain Kimmy, our sovereign queen of the Advice Show. A world of thanks and all the best to Stu for his many years on the Advice Show throne. Hear, hear. Today, I ask about how player options and agency may change when a character loses key gear, even if temporarily, based on game system design. Let's unpack this idea with an example using Sir Awesome and his magic MacGuffin Sword of Wonders. I'm on board.
Okay.
During a game, Sir Awesome might temporarily lose his magic sword because he was captured and it is just out of reach. Or the loss could be more long-term, perhaps even permanent, because it was destroyed in an epic battle by his arch nemesis, resulting in a story that players will recount later at their favorite diner over waffles and motivate future game sessions. Now, let's split RPGs into two broad groups. In the first group, Sir Awesome's sword is a magic weapon, but ultimately it is just a piece of gear. D&D, Shadowrun, and other gear-centric games fall into the group. If Sir Awesome does not have his magic sword in these games, his basic character features are fundamentally unchanged. Yeah, I mean, that's true. In Shadowrun, if you have an awesome katana or whatever, and you lose it, you could pick up another sword and be almost as good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, certainly. Okay. I think I'm on board with this. In the second group, Sir Awesome's magic sword is far more integrated into the character's design. We see this in more narrative-centric games, some of which hand-wave tracking and use the gear unless that gear helps define the character and things they do. Fate, Cortex, and less gear-focused games fall into this group. Sir Awesome does not have his magical sword in this group of games. Oh, if he doesn't have the sword in this group of games, there could be larger design impacts on Sir Awesome. For example, if in Fate, Sir Awesome's magic MacGuffin Sword of Wonders would be an aspect. If Sir Awesome does not have his magic sword, the player effectively has one less aspect to use until the magic sword is recovered or the aspect changed to something else. Not having the magic sword when it is an aspect in Fate could present other interesting game options and involve plot points, but that might be out of scope for this topic. Some games try to balance between these two game groups. Mutants and Masterminds break gear into devices and equipment based on usage and importance. Characters might temporarily lose their devices, but should always get them back later, like Iron Man and his suit. Fate has similar rules for gear as aspects, but the aspect mechanics may present a greater challenge. If Sir Awesome was in a solo player game, the ramifications might not be so bad. Yet, most of the time we have multiple player characters in a game session. So let's say Sir Awesome is accompanied by Madame Marvelous. They are played in Fate, and each character has 5 aspects. One of Sir Awesome's aspects is his magic MacGuffin Sword of Wonders. Madame Marvelous does not have any gear as aspects. When they are captured and their gear is taken away, Madame Marvelous still has 5 functional aspects, but Sir Awesome only has 4. This could be seen as an imbalance by the players and an opportunity for them to claim diminished agency. So to the crew I ask, what are your thoughts on games that use gear not just as general equipment, but as core narrative elements? When is it okay for such important gear to be taken away, lost, damaged, and so on? Lastly, do you think Sir Awesome's loss of the magic MacGuffin Sword of Wonders qualifies as reducing player agency? And does your opinion change based on the type of game? Have you had this happen to you or a fellow player? How did it go? All the best, Sean near DC, RU Jedi on Discord. P.S. What would you get if you crossed Wonder Woman with a Transformer?
I don't know.
Amazon Prime.
Ugh.
What's your favorite Wonder Woman joke or pun? Thank you for the email.
Yes.
This is a juicy one. Well,
Yeah.
what's your favorite Wonder Woman joke?
I always think of the meme because, okay, I'm terrible about my keys. And especially in the morning, I'm
You mean
stressed
losing
out.
your keys?
Yeah, losing my keys. Like, I actually have, like, the little thing where I can, like, look on my phone and find my keys because I'm so bad about it. And that was, like, the greatest
I
gift.
can confirm.
Yeah.
Kimmy had to redesign her driveway
Yes.
because many's the time that her husband has been trapped behind her car and he couldn't get out.
Yes. So that was the greatest gift he ever gave himself was me, a little tracker thing on my key set that I can like flip open my phone and like, oh, my keys are over there. So I always think he used to send me, there's the one where it's like, you are Wonder Woman. I wonder where my keys are. I wonder where my book is. I wonder. There's like a meme. So it's not a joke per se, but that's one of my favorite things.
That's very good.
Yes. So whenever I lose something, there's always that little thing that flips into my head. I wonder where this is.
Yeah.
I am Wonder Woman. I wonder all these things.
That's brilliant. I love it.
I've learned so much about you right there, too. Known her for over 10 years. And so.
ADHD. It's amazing.
Great.
Lots of
Well,
wonder.
just also mommy brain, and just you get busy.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how many things you get forgotten when you're busy adulting.
Yeah.
Just things fall out of your head.
What?
Yep.
You mean like having a full-time job as a teacher, raising a toddler, running an RPG network, running a game company with a Kickstarter that I'm fulfilling right now, and
And running a household.
yeah, that's right too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sounds easy enough.
it's fine. I don't need sleep. It's okay. Yes, that's my favorite Wonder Woman thing. I probably should like look up an actual Wonder Woman joke, but I think that's funny. So
Well, what do we think about this equipment situation?
I have a couple of thoughts.
Okay.
He's sort of leaving out a couple of games too, and this is the one that really stuck in my craw, which is like the superhero games. Since we were on a superhero kick earlier before the game started, we were talking about superheroes. Like if you've designed a hero in GURPS or Hero or Savage Worlds, and much of your power comes from your magic sword, think of the Black Knight or
Thor.
it comes from your
Right.
sword or whatever it is, and you lose it or it's kept from you, then you can't do anything.
are you the god of hammers?
Right. Well, it was retconned. But,
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding.
Recently, but yes, I'm not the god of hammers. And it
I'd
could
like to be the
effectively
god of hammers.
it could effectively make your character ineffectual, and it is basically robbing you of player agency. It's like, well, now I can't do anything because you've taken away my thing. That's the thing that gives me the power to do something.
But when you
Now
sit
I'm
down,
just Donald Blake, and I can't do anything with my crippled leg and my wooden cane.
when you sit down to play though, and you're playing Tony Stark,
I'm real quick just gonna X card the use of the word cripple. I don't want to use that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Just
okay.
FYI.
when you sit down and play Tony Stark, you know that if you're not in your armor, like I think about setting this up in a game like Wild Talents, right? Like the thing that makes the armor cheaper in my points is that it can be taken off of me, right? Like versus these being inherent powers. And I know that that's a trade-off in the thing. And so part of the thing, like a story thing about Tony Stark is getting him out of his armor, right? It's getting Thor's hammer away, you know?
Green
It's,
Lantern's ring off.
getting Wonder Woman's lasso, you know? Like, that's a story beat for those characters. We don't use that story when we're talking about Spider-Man. We have other things, right? And that's, to me, it's not really player agency because I, the player, made this character who has a lot of their power invested into this object. And I would be surprised if, okay, the player gets knocked out and they get their armor taken away or whatever, and they're like, wait, what? I would be surprised at their surprise, I think. Or I would want to have that conversation ahead of time.
Yeah, you want to have that conversation. First of all, you have to be very careful about taking away players' stuff.
Yeah,
In
I
any
agree.
game.
Yeah.
Even if you put them all in prison and you take away their stuff, you have to give them the opportunity to get their stuff back.
Yes.
Players get very attached to their stuff, whether it's just their sword because it's theirs.
Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing with you on that point.
And so you have to be careful with that anyway. But second of all, if you've got a character whose soul power derives from an object, you have to be able to give them the choice to give it back, because otherwise you've taken away their entire fun, you've taken away their game. Now they just sit there pouty, and rightfully so. They're like, all right, you guys hit him, and I'm going to stay here out of the way. I'm going to hide behind these boxes. And their whole 4-play game sessions till he gets his hammer back,
Sure.
is hiding. And it's no fun for the player. That's sloppy GMing on your part.
Yeah.
There should be something
You
for them to
shouldn't
do.
punish him for having a magic hammer.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Mercer, when he was on our show forever ago,
Mhm.
told a story about this exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had this character, I forget what system they were playing.
I think it was one of the anime things. So he made the anime with the big
With
sword.
it, yeah.
And the sword was his thing. That's what he did. I was like, I've got the sword.
And it was literally like their first session, I think, where the GM like took it away from him.
Like permanently?
I think it was many years
E-
ago.
Enough so that Matt
Yeah.
was like, I'm out.
Yeah,
F
like
this. That's-
he-
I built the whole character around this sword and being able to do stuff with this sword, and now I can't do it. Take
Yeah.
away the thing I can do.
Yeah, see, now that's the kind of conversation I would want to have beforehand, where like I don't mean it as harshly as I'm like, well, if you built your whole character around a sword and the sword gets taken away, you're surprised that you're at a disadvantage. On one hand, okay, but I would have that conversation before. I would be like, okay, so you've built this character around this sword, and like I'm not gonna just try to take it away, but as soon as the villain finds out that that's your thing, Superman, I'm going to put a kryptonite necklace on you as soon as I can when I know that that's a thing, because that's what a smart villain would do. But having that conversation ahead of time, I think, just to clarify.
Have you ever tried to take stuff away from a player as a GM? You will suddenly make your players so obsessed with getting that person and their family and their house and the city that they live in, they suddenly become completely unreasonable.
I think
Yeah, I think I've been privy to that experience, at least. I don't think I, as a GM, go around taking away my players' toys. But I'm trying to picture the environment in which that would happen, because I have put characters in jail before, with expecting a jailbreak, right? But that means there had to be also some Deus Ex Machina at getting their jailbreak, because if the enemy knows anything about you, they're going to know how to put you in jail that you can't break out of. Right.
And they're not just going to put your stuff right outside the door.
Right.
I think this is where system really matters. For the example, for Fate, as a player, when you're playing Fate, you get to pick your aspects. You get to come up with them. So if you as a player choose, like, hey, this one aspect is going to be all around this weapon, like that is part of your agency. Like, you've made the choice to create your aspect something that can be removed from you. So I think, again, like you were saying, Jason, that's like the thing you have to say, like, okay, this is a thing you might drop or get drunk and lose, and maybe not that, but that's just my players.
If I may.
Yes.
When I wrote Demigods.
Oh. Now, what is demigod?
It's a modern day magical realism game about playing the adult children of gods.
Oh.
But there actually is a section in there about your gifts, your magical items, your magical powers, and whatever. There is a whole play option. Like, in one of the moves, there's a thing that's like, one of your gifts goes dead or is unusable. But that's a thing you, the player, choose, right? Like, oh, dang, I dropped my sword. Like, that's player agency, right? But there's a whole section in there, too, that says, hey, Harold, don't take their stuff away, right? If their stuff goes away, it should be because they chose to throw their magic ring in the lava because they knew it would freeze the lava, and they were willing to sacrifice that and tell them this is a big deal, right? Like, it's not a surprise, it's not a gotcha moment. Do it like this, or you're doing it wrong. I don't normally tell people they're playing wrong. There's a lot of right ways to play, but I guess player items do matter to me, because I wrote that into my concern.
I'm going to push back a little bit, because demigods, especially those items, are different, and they usually have different physics than the real world items. So having a sword in another Fate game is different. You can't just be like, oh, this is, the magical, this is Mjolnir. So I'm going to leave it here. And then when I call it, it'll come to me, or it will manifest when I'm there, which is part of demigods. Not all the time, but it's definitely something where you could, like, if you get kidnapped by the bad guy, like, there might be a reason where they won't remove your weapon because it's attached to you, or it turns into a bracelet, or only what can be held by you or something, because you have that magical demigod power.
Sure. But you're right that system matters. Go ahead. But
Yeah.
like I'm 100% with you.
Yeah. So there are settings where that's not realistic. Like, it's like, okay, you've just gotten, like, if you're playing a noir game, you're like, okay, I have a amazing rifle that was given to me by my great grandfather or something, like, who knows. And that one of your aspects in Fate, going back to Fate, is that, like, shoot 'em up is your aspect.
Right.
So with just the special gun, like, if the mob boss catches you, they're gonna, like, I feel like that's asking too much of the gym to be like, the mob boss lets you keep your shotgun.
Right.
No problem. Like, so again, you do have to have that clear communication of, okay, this is the type of thing that you've come up with as an aspect. This is something that could happen. Are you sure you don't want this just to be an item and then have another aspect? Or maybe shoot 'em up applies to, like, any gun rather than this one. So having that conversation, because if the player walks into that knowingly, like, I think that's a fair take. And again, like, Fate's a different example because you get to create your own aspects. If you're playing something where it's D&D and you're like, okay, this is my +2 sword, which is a big deal in D&D. Like, that's a whole nother thing where it's like you have a very real chance of losing your stuff there.
What's
So I don't
interesting
know.
about D&D too is that, especially with 4E, they wanted you to have magic items. You needed to have magic items, and you would constantly trade up and
to.
upgrade.
That
You
was-
had to.
Yeah, that was magic item bloat in 4E for sure.
Yeah.
I actually liked a fair amount about 4E, but, like, yeah, the magic item bloat
And
was
in
wild.
a way, the magic items were important to your character, finding the right one that fit and did the right things for you. And people were always sort of like metagaming, like, if you get this wand instead of that dagger, it'll give you this to this to this. And you're like, this hurts my brain. Can I just kill something?
And if that gets taken away, your character's hamstrung.
Right.
And there's a lot less that you can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, I'm always really careful about taking people, even like a jailbreak. Jailbreaks always sound fun. Like, who doesn't like a jailbreak? But the minute you start trying to take away your player's stuff, they will rather jump off that cliff than have you take their sword, even if it's just a run-of-the-mill custom sword they had. They would like, I'd rather die.
Yeah.
But so you have to, okay, guys, I'm going to put you in jail, but you're going to at least give them a chance to get their stuff back, or maybe you'll get better stuff. But roll with me on this, because if you guys fight me and commit suicide, we're going to be out of here in 2 hours. And you're done.
Yeah. I will say, the couple times I've run jailbreaks, like, we got through it. It was fine, but it wasn't that fun.
No.
And I just recalled one of my very first times. I started D&D in 3.5 edition, and we started a campaign, and we made a big deal. At some point early on, we were like, okay, we all have horses. Oh, this is cool. And we all talked about what kind of horses we had and whatever, and this was really cool.
Name them.
And then we rode up to some woods, and, like, blink spiders killed our horses immediately.
No.
And we're like, dude, if you wanted us to go on foot, just tell us we can't have horses. This sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Especially with horses. Don't be mean to horses.
just don't let us have them in the first place. If your campaign can't survive us being on horses, then start over.
Or can we just work with this?
Right.
Like, yes, and it.
Yeah, or like, it would have been really easy for him to say, hey, the forest you guys are headed towards, your horses are not going to be able to get through there, so you may want to stable them in an inn or something, like.
Or even just Deus Max and I like this. Your horses are well trained enough that they will find their way back to the stable.
Sure.
Done. Problem
Great.
solved.
Whatever.
Just like Bill the pony from
Did
Lord
not
of the Rings.
need to murder the fucking horses. It sucked.
It's never okay.
No. And it wasn't even like, we're like, okay, well, we're going into battle with our war horses and shit could happen. Like, It wasn't even that. It was just like, surprise, your horses are dead. Sucks.
Sucks to be you. Huh?
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
honestly, the horses would just throw you off and run like hell. So
That-
you would probably die before the horses, really. But
Fine, but that was the moment, like, Stork, when you were talking about that idea of like taking this stuff away and how players feel about it. That's what popped in my head.
I
Was
know.
like that moment of like, well, why the
yeah.
fuck did I have this horse
Oh,
and
yeah.
name it and like,
attached and
yeah,
Why did you let us go through all that? We spent an hour and a half like buying and picking out saddles and naming them, and then you killed them.
I don't remember the name, but I do remember that she was like kind of chestnut brown with a white patch, the diamond on the forehead.
To this day, you're still upset.
She was probably called Diamond or something.
So that proves my point in many ways. I think the cautionary tale as a GM, which is be very careful about taking your players' stuff because people get attached to it, and a lot of people play these games to get stuff, and it's kind of fun and helps define your character. You know, you when you play much of the gaming culture now, when you're playing an MMO or you're playing a role playing game, you delight in buying outfits. You spend all this pretend money that you have you're basically your Bitcoin in WoW dollars or whatever, buying useless costume pieces because they look cool, and that same mindset carries over into the role playing games.
Yeah.
Tabletop. You buy stuff to make your character cool. It's like I have this bit, and so you take it from them. You may not be crippling them per se. You know, you just
Try
take
not
away.
to use that word though.
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
I'm using. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry,
Harming them.
but I don't mean to interrupt
Yeah.
what you're saying. But
I now realize I use that word a lot.
Yes. Well, especially when someone points it out, then it's the only word you could think
yeah,
of.
and now you're like, okay, don't say it. And-
But I use it a lot, but I'm mostly in the verb form.
well, anyway,
Anyway, I don't know what to substitute for now. Anyway, maybe you take away your paladin's brass armor and they have to go with something that isn't as flashy, but they were very attached to it, and it was defining how they did things and the way they
Yeah.
looked. You know, and paladins have to look good when they ride onto the field or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that's the broader topic about taking away their stuff, which is as a GM and in any game, you either have to have conversations and you have to be very careful about how you approach it and do it. You may have the best of intentions. You may not even think about it. You might just think, well, I'll just take out their horses. It's not a big deal. Only to be surprised that your players are so pissed. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
You as a GM need to be very aware of how attached players can get to things.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And people. We got attached to NPCs. And to the point where the GM's like kill them and we get upset.
yeah.
So I think this has brought up the whole point to me, which is as a GM, be very careful
Yeah.
and think about it and have conversations before you start drastically taking your players' stuff and even stepping on their toes. It can even just be a visual thing. It doesn't even have to take away their power set. They sometimes get very attached to it.
Take away their pretty horses.
Burn down their
I'm still mad.
base,
I know.
kill their NPC quest giver.
Especially chestnut horses. I have a soft spot for those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
The horse I
sorry.
used to show was chestnut.
oh.
Her name was Duchess, and she had a big white blaze that had a perfect oval in
I
the
just
middle.
described your
Yeah,
horse.
I know. You said that. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
god!
Duchess got
I've never even seen a
lit.
picture of your horse either. That's wild.
I'll
Okay.
post it somewhere. She had like a perfect oval in the middle of her blaze. It was amazing.
I've only
But-
recently just started watching like horse training videos. There's this woman, Sam Van Vliet, who trains horses, and I have known nothing about them, but I find the whole world fascinating.
Yeah. It's
Just the whole energy exchange, and she gentles horses with the non-violence, and it's
Oh,
fascinating
nice.
to me.
Nice.
And might be speaking out of turn, but aren't the brown chestnuts like the most common coloring for horses?
one of
Maybe.
them. Yeah. It depends on the breed too.
Yes.
So
Where you are in the world, I imagine.
like if you have an Andalusian, most of the time they're white or they start gray and they white. If you have like a chestnut or a brown Andalusian, it's actually very rare and really desired. Because like Lepizaners, they're very much in the gray and white coloring. But
But
for
like Morgans and Clydesdales and Hot Bloods and
Yeah.
Wet Mustangs and
for tons of them, it's very common.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
welcome to our equestrian podcast.
I love that.
One of the things, sorry to derail the horse
You're good.
conversation, but one of the things that a D&D DM did for me that I didn't realize I would like, and I had done in Shadowrun for years, because I'd only ever played Shadowrun for years, and then I played GURPS and Palladium and, you know, all that whole school of games, because I like point-based games. The like whole class and level thing never clicked.
I like point-based games too. I love buying stuff, and I like being
Yeah.
able to modify them on the fly. I
And-
totally love it.
And in Shadowrun, I would buy a submachine gun, and then I wasn't going to go buy a better one. I was going to put a laser on it, and I was going to put stabilizers on it, and like extend the stock, and like customize it, and like, all right, this thing kicks ass.
As
right?
Stu has pointed out, players love shopping.
Yes.
And they love shopping to buy stuff for their things.
Especially in a game where your gear matters.
Yes.
You know, like in Demigods, as much as I say be kind to their gear, all the weapons do the same amount of damage.
Yeah.
There's no, there's no numeric disadvantage to picking up a different weapon.
Yeah.
So, there's that. But having a D&D DM say, okay, gang, you've got your plate armor. When you pick up new magic armor, you can keep that and bond it to you if you want, or you can do this ritual that you all know and meld its dust into your gear, right? And your gear will become the +2 with whatever that, it'll like override whatever the other ability was. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'd never seen anyone do that before. I was like, that's cool.
It's a little non-gaming rule that won't break the game. And fixes a lot of things for
Right.
people. Yeah.
And whatever that game was in, it was like, and I carried this over because I know I had some of this description in Abria's Dragon Heist game that she ran for us. But I was playing a character who had plate armor, and there was this elaborate, I think it was a lion face or something. This was before World of Warcraft. I didn't know about all the, whatever. But I was like, man, this armor's so cool. What's going to happen when I get an
not before
upgrade?
World of Warcraft. World of
Well,
Warcraft.
no, the MMO. The MMO.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. World of Warcraft, the MMO, was long before we met Abria, my friend.
No. Whatever this other D&D game was.
Oh.
Where the DM was saying,
Oh, I'm sorry.
here's how I'll let you upgrade your stuff so you don't have to get rid of your thing and just drop this awesome plate armor on the ground because you found this other armor.
God, I'm sorry.
It
I
was
glommed onto you talking about Abria's Dragon Heist, and I'm like, dude,
That's fine.
World of Warcraft was old by the time Abria was running
I
Dragon
often
Heist.
come unstuck from time, and so I do not mind being called out on time references. So that's fine. But I just remember thinking like, I've never seen anyone talk about this in a game like D&D where the gear is so static and not meant to be upgraded or modified. I remember like from early on, I was trying to make an artificer and it didn't exist.
Right.
And then once the artificer came out, I was like, that's what I was talking about. That's what I was trying to do.
We used to go to a place called Square Deal Sam's, and you could either buy items or have them made. But you would pay for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then we even house ruled if you just went to a fine bladesmith, they could make you a +1 blade. It was well balanced, it fit your hand, and it would give you a +1, but it wasn't magical per se.
Sure, it didn't overcome magical resistance, but it was masterwork.
Cut better is a masterwork, right?
Yeah.
Which they now incorporate it, but back then we just that you can do this. It's a thing you can do with all these extra copper that you're hauling around in your cart. Just have magical items and stuff made, and then you get pissed off when your custom-made weapon that you paid money for, that you spent hours describing and drawing, and a little tablet stuff gets taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and this DM who would let us combine new stuff, he was also the first one I'd heard say, okay, don't worry about what your arrows, he did want to count the arrows and stuff, but he was like, don't worry about what those are. Whatever your bow is, when you pull it back, the arrow, if it's a magic bow, right, it adapts the arrow to, now if it's a silver bow, then the arrow becomes silver tip, and great.
All right.
It's
a magic bow.
Yeah.
Of course it does that. Why wouldn't it?
Why go through all the trouble of okay, well, now I have 17 silver arrows. I'm he did want to count the arrows though. I remember that part. But it would do its thing. It would be poison or silver or whatever. And then it would go back to being a normal arrow, which I guess isn't how most people do it, but I thought that was cool.
Well, that way there's not a lot of silver arrows lying around in the battlefield that anybody else can take and sell.
And just make money off of that.
Right.
Why are we adventuring? Let's just shoot silver arrows at the wall.
That's exactly what happened when somebody shot a bunch of silver arrows into a tree, plucked them out, went out and bought stuff. They're changing the rule.
Done.
All right. I think that was good. So, yeah. Sometimes player agency, depending on the system.
But a lot of it is handled by having a pre-talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you're
So
making
much.
characters, talk about whether you want, as the GM, you want the option to take their stuff away. Have that conversation.
And even, okay, I have this idea. It's the kernel of an idea for a traveler game. But it would be a low-tech traveler game, so I need to have that conversation with the players. Like, so go ahead and make your characters as normal, but know that we're probably going to be in a low-tech, like Tech 1, Tech 2.
Yeah, we're not going to have lasers. We're not going to,
And it's going to start out, your ship is crashing.
Okay.
So know that. But I was sitting here thinking, I'll just launch into it. I'm like, no. Because if everybody makes an engineer and they're all really good at fighting and piloting and they've got their lasers and stuff, and then I take it from them in the first 10 minutes of the game, they are going to be pissed.
Yeah, that's less fun.
So it's the kind of thing, like, even though I'm not necessarily taking their stuff, but I'm making their stuff maybe ineffectual or limited, you need to have that conversation ahead of time so that they are at least not blindsided by it, so that everybody, when they get to pick a skill, picks swords instead of laser rifle all the way across. Yeah. But that's just being a mature GM and having and knowing
An
and being-
adult conversation.
I guess maybe this is pushing it a bit, but having a bit of empathy for your players. If you've ever been on the other side of the table and you know how shitty it feels to have your horse killed, then you as a GM wouldn't do it.
I mean, I wouldn't do it anyway.
Right. Well, yes.
I mean,
Heaven help the GM that killed my horse. Can I just say?
Right?
that joke has come up in games for me because pets have always, before I understood lines and veils and X cards, pets have always been basically invincible. Like, I told people, I'm not going to kill your pet. And the joke was, okay, I pick up my dog in front of me and run forward. Like, no, that's not what was actually happening in the game, but like,
stop breaking my game.
like they knew I wasn't.
It's your rule.
I wasn't gonna kick the dog. Yeah, but that's or if it's your magical familiar, like they might poof, and then you can resummon them.
Yeah,
later,
that's
like,
different.
When you have players that do that, how do you handle it? Do you just look at them in the eye and go, "Is this really fun for you? Really?"
Oh, yeah. I've never had anyone try it seriously, right? It was always they would joke about it,
But I've had similar things where people find a little loophole and they just pick at it. They keep picking at it.
I've definitely been in
And
that
you're like,
situation.
you're a douche.
Yeah, I usually.
Like now you're not having fun for anybody. You're gleefully smug that you found an error in my house rule or in the rules, and now you're lording it over me. I hate you.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're set.
Yeah,
All right.
we fixed it.
Thank you for joining us for season 30, episode 3 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is There we go. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Stork.
I'm Jason.
If you enjoy the show, please make sure you subscribe and leave a review if you can. And please send us emails.
Yeah,
we need
please.
emails right now. So happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. And we are going to leave you with a song. We're actually going to leave you with a song by the world famous Poxy Boggards this weekend.
Now, what's the Poxy Boggards?
Yeah, that's not a thing I'm going to say, even on this podcast.
They're a bunch of really old men that have been around a long time that do folk music in the vaudeville style show.
Yeah.
I like the air quotes around folk music.
Well, I don't know what else. It's the only genre it fits in, but
It's kind of prog rock now.
prog rock came from folk. If you listen to Jethro Tull and
Oh, sure.
and there's a lot of folk in it. But my point is that they're You Google them. They're on Spotify. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Well,
you wanna be.
I thought you wanted a definition of poxy, and I'm like, that's a little bit
No,
much.
no.
Okay.
I know what that word means.
Yeah. So we're actually playing a song by Stu that he released also as Angry Folk Band called Casilda's Song.
Oh yeah.
And that is inspired by eldritch horror and that whole genre. And so here you go. You can listen to that, and we will see you next time. Bye.
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 Along the shore the cloud waves break, the twin suns sink behind the lake, and the shadows lengthen in Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise, and strange moons circle through the skies, but stranger still is lost Carcosa. dead. Die thou unsung as tears unshed shall dry and die in lost Carcosa. Song of my soul, my voice is dead. Die thou unsung as tears unshed shall dry and die in lost Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise and strange moons circle through the skies, but stranger still is lost Carcosa. Songs that the Hyades shall sing will flap the tatters of the king must die unheard in dim Carcosa. Song of my soul, my voice is dead. Die thou unsung as tears unshed shall dry and die in lost Carcosa.